Hey guys, TrepChains here. I just wanted to run through my speed zMonk build that I'm currently running for Season 16 patch 2.6.4. It will be a little different to some of the speed zMonks out there, so just keep that in mind. If you want the more traditional, you'll have to look at somebody else's guide. This is how I'm liking to run it at the moment. Keep in mind for this guide that it is recorded in Season 16, which includes the Ring of Royal Grandeur buff. So if you're running this at a different time, non-season or in another season, you're going to need some alterations because you'll have to fit in an extra piece of inners for this build. This build is currently built to run with a DPS Trash Killer Barb, an Impale Demon Hunter for elites, and a support Barbarian. So that's what I'm running with in this particular build. Okay, so the gameplay that's showing here is from some GR100s from my team's first night running this setup. So it's unlikely to be perfect, but I just wanted to show the gear and skills that I'm personally using and why I'm using them for this. My role as a zMonk is pretty much shrine, so I've got some gear on there to get shrine buffs. Speed buffs, so running Breath of Heaven Zephyr to provide speed buffs to the team. Damage buff, primarily from Mantra of Conviction Annihilation. Pylons, I get to hit the pylons. I'm the running the Nemesis. Healing, as always with the zMonk, you are doing a bunch of healing. And also just pulling in those groups of mobs with my Cyclone Strike. So, pretty general stuff there. Okay. So I'm going to flick over to the game where I will be able to show my gear and skills that I'm choosing to run for this SpeedMonk build. Okay, so here I am in game on my speed zMonk. I'll just go through the gear initially. I am wearing a 4-piece inners set. Noting I'm only wearing 3 pieces at the moment because we are in Season 16 and I have the Ring of Royal Grandeur buff. If I didn't, I think the first legendary I would switch out would be the gloves because they're only benefiting me, not really the team. So that's how I would personally get my 4-piece if I was to change it right now. If I wasn't running in Season 16, if I was running in another season or in non-season. Okay, so 4-piece inners. Well, you need 4-piece set bonus, so I'm wearing 3 pieces right now. And that's really important for gaining the base effect of all 4 mantras at all times. So the mantra I'm running here is Mantra of Conviction Annihilation. And importantly, that gives me the active skill for that. But I get the base passive of all mantras. So I get the base passive of Salvation, Retribution, and Healing by running that 4 piece of inners. So that's pretty important there. Okay, so the stats I'm running on this, inners chest, you can see Dex, Fit are important. You really need that health globe secondary. Ideally, I think an all resistance or something on the chest would be better, but I've got an armor there with a secondary resistance, so that's fine too. You just really want survivability stats. You're not doing damage. Damage isn't really important to you. On the belt, this is reasonably well rolled. You'll see a lot of my pieces aren't that well rolled because we are only about 9 days into season. So it is early season when I'm recording this guide. Dexterity, Vitality, Resist 1% life. They're pretty good stats to have there. There is no health load possible on the secondary there. Pants, Dex, Fit are great. Ideally, I'd probably want an all resist there. But as you can see, I've got a secondary resist. So I've got a plus armor rolled there. So really, survivability is the focus. Like my main zMonk guide, cooldown is also really important for this build. I'll just show now I am running 65.23% cooldown, so it's important where possible to get around that 65+% mark. Cooldown always before globes, keep that in mind. Cooldown first. Okay, supporting legendaries. We do have a lot in this build. We'll start here with the helm. So wearing Eye of Peshkov helm here. And this is because we're running Breath of Heaven for the movement speed buff for our team. So you want some survivability stats on there. So Dex, Fit, or Resist, they're pretty reasonable stats there. You want that orange stat as high as possible. You can see it goes up to 50%. So the closer to 50%, the better. I'm running down at 45, but that's what I've found so far. But closer to 50% on that orange stat, the better. To be able to keep hearing that breath of heaven for the movement speed buff for your team. Okay. Left press soliloquy. These are what you've run pretty much on all support monks because the benefit to your survivability with Cyclone Strike is so large. So the stats on this are okay. Dex, Fit, % life cooldown, that's fine. You really, there's one of the pieces you can have health globe, so you really do want a health globe bonus on there if at all possible, remembering cooldown above health globe. And you want that orange set there as high as possible. It goes up to 50%. I've got a 45 because that's what I've found so far to be able to get cooldown and health globe on it. The higher, the better for your survivability. So you're using Cyclone Strike during the Rift to pull together the mobs. Every time you're using it, you're also getting that survivability buff. Gloves of Worship. Now, these work together with your cube because you have, I'll quickly mention now, the Spear of Lycander in your cube. So when you kill a random demon, and note demon is a type of mob that you can get. So if they're in your rift, you get this chance to gain a random shrine effect. So this might be some extra cooldown or some extra speed or something like that. So a typical shrine effect lasts for 2 minutes. So when this procs, your whole team get the shrine for 2 minutes. By wearing these gloves, you get the shrine effect. This is just you, not your team, for 10 minutes. So particularly when, say, there's a cooldown buff, that really helps you as well. But as I say, if I wasn't running the Ring of Royal Grandeur buff in Season 16, this is the first piece I'd swap out because it's only benefiting me, not my team. So I see it as less important, and I would probably run Inner's gloves there to make up my 4-piece. Okay. Braces. So in this particular setup that I'm running with this DPS Trash Clearer Barb, Impale Demon Hunter, and the support Barb, I'm actually the one wearing Nemesis. So you need to be running Nemesis for this, and you're the one to pop all the pylons to get those extra elites to help you progress through the rift faster. Okay, jewelry. So I'm running a Hellfire. You could run a Hellfire or an immunity amulet. It's kind of up to you. This Hellfire I've got, overall I'd say it's not that well rolled, but I do have cooldown on there and I do have health globes, and they're my top 2 priority stats when I'm running a zMonk. And you can see there my passive, having a usable passive is very important. I've got the near death experience, so cheat death there is my passive. The other stats I've got on there, I do roll intelligence when I'm rolling Hellfire amulets because the all resistance from intelligence is more beneficial to me than the armor I would get from dexterity or strength. So that's why I've got that there. Critical hit chance, well, I couldn't roll it off. I had to roll my health globes, so I don't really want that. I'd love some vitality or all resistance or, you know, something like that. Okay, rings, pretty standard rings for a zMonk. So Obsidian Ring of Zodiac is going to help you with cooldown. You want, obviously, your cooldown on that as high as possible, your attack speed as high as possible, resource cost reduction as high as possible as well, but in that order, cooldown most important, then attack speed, then resource cost reduction. And you really want health globes on this, so you can get health globes in your rings, so that's important. And this is not well rolled yet, an Oculus ring. So I've got the right stats on here. Really, it's well rolled in terms of stats, but unfortunately my orange stat is really low. So vitality, really helpful. Resistance to all, really helpful. Cooldown, one of my top 2 stats. Health globes is secondary, one of my top 2 stats. Unfortunately, my orange stat on this one's down at 76%, so I'm really looking for a better one. It goes up to 85%, closer to 85 or 85 the better. But as I say, we're only 9 days into Season 16. This is the best I've found so far. Okay, that's jewelry. Weapons. So cooldown's really important for your build. So to that extent, I'm using the Ingeom. It's giving me, aka I have cooldown rolled on it as well, very important. But that orange stat, your skill cooldown's reduced by 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack. In speed, you're killing elite packs really often, so you're really regularly getting this buff. Note that this it has to be the entire elite pack taken down for this to proc. So blue packs, as long as they're dead, that's great. But a yellow pack, if you're just killing the yellow and not the minions around it, this won't actually proc. So just keep that in mind. But it's just some extra cooldown, which makes your life a lot easier. Okay, the other weapon I've chosen to use at the moment is the pig sticker. Just because of those secondary damage bonuses. But the stats I've got rolled in there. Cooldown's really important. Attack speed helps. I would love some vitality on there. I just don't have it on this one, but those skills, those other stats are still helpful. Dexterity gives me armor, and reduced resource costs is helpful because I do use a lot of resource in this build. I did not mention my stats over on my Ingeom. Again, cooldown really important. I've got dex and life per hit on there. Again, I would love some vitality. It would be really handy. You can't get a secondary health lobe on here, so you don't have to worry too much about the secondary on these. Now, I think I forgot my illusory boots earlier. So this is one of my best rolled pieces so far this season. So intelligence, bonus, all resistance, as opposed to getting some armor from dexterity. Vitality is great, resistance to all is great. Armor is okay. I would personally rather some health regen on that. But, you know, this is what I've got so far. And importantly, the secondary health load bonus on those. So overall, just rolling up to stop my stat screen, as well as running that 65.23% cooldown reduction that I already mentioned earlier, my health load bonus so far, about 9 days into season, is up at 196,697. Okay. So, the cube. I've already talked about the Spear of Lycander there for those shrine effects if a demon is killed, and it's a chance. But when it procs, it helps your whole team. They all get that shrine effect for 2 minutes, so that's helpful. I'm personally running Spirit Guards in my cube for some extra survivability. I don't like dying too much as a zMonk. I'm not very helpful when I'm dead, so I like having my Spirit Guards in there, which means every time I hit my crippling wave, they're proccing, so I need to be hitting that. Well, I'm hitting it pretty much all the time, but you know, at least every 3 seconds for my Spirit Guards to be proccing. You will find that some people are running without these. They feel they have enough survivability, and perhaps when I have a higher Paragon, I might choose to drop these out as well for some extra strong arms for the team for a damage buff. Could be really handy there if you feel you're surviving fine. You can use strong arms instead of the Spirit Guards there. And for my jewelry slot, I am running an immunity amulet. So as I said before, instead of the Hellfire, you can run an immunity amulet. I'm running one in my cube. You could run 2 if you don't have that Hellfire there. So I'm running the fire one as my preference in the cube. But yeah, if you want another one for survivability, you could run any other immunity there that you like. Okay, so legendary gems being run in this build. Most of it I'd say standard zMonk. So Ice Blink, that's standard zMonk, because we're basically increasing the chance to be critically hit on all the enemies we're hitting. So that's a damage boost for our DPS. Toxin is also a damage boost for our DPS. All enemies you poison take 10% increased damage from all sources and deal 10% less damage. So it's also some survivability. So hitting with both of those is basically a damage buff for everyone and a bit of survivability. And finally, I'm running Gogok of Swiftness. So this is, as well as giving me some attack speed and dodge, importantly, it gives me extra cooldown. So with this, and I don't typically run this in my standard zMonk, but really I've got plenty of cooldown on this build, which is really handy. So they're the legendary gems I'm running there. Okay. Now, general gems. So cooldown in my helm. The bonus I get by running this Gogok of Swiftness as well is I don't have space on this for the Lyrics crown, which gives you that extra cooldown. So I get extra cooldown there from my Gogok, but I'm still running a cooldown gem in the helm. It's just not doubled. Then I'm running all resistance gems in my armor, and we're 9 days into season. I don't have max level gems yet. That's okay, guys. It's not a race. Maybe it is, but you know, I'm fine with that. I'm sure I'll get enough gems to make some max level gems soon, but importantly I have all resistant gems in my armor pieces and life per hit gems in my weapons to help me regen life and survive a bit better. Okay, have a look at my Paragon screen. So typically for any kind of support class, make sure your area damage has nothing in it. We don't want area damage, all it's going to cause is lag, and we're not doing damage anyway. So if I was picking on these, I would probably take the life per hit first. We're early season, followed by resource cost reduction, followed by gold find. Gold find's not very useful in greater rifts, so really life per hit followed by resource cost reduction on utility. Just make sure even when you've got the points, do not put them into area damage. Defense. Okay, so defense early season when you don't have much Paragon, while I do like life regen on this build, I would actually put it later in my preferences, just because I need to survive before regen helps me. So I go between resist all and percent life here first. Let's say resist all top, life second, then life regen. It's going to give a little bit of a buff to my heals, followed by armor last would be my preference there. Offense, so we're not trying to damage things here as our zDPS, so cooldown is our #1 priority in offense, followed by attack speed, hitting things faster. In my version of the build will give you more heals, and then crit hit chance, crit hit damage after that, whichever order you like. They're not really helping you. Over in core, I have maximum spirit, all points in, and movement speed. If I was prioritizing these, I would always prioritize movement speed first, assuming I didn't have some on my boots or something, followed by max spirit, and then followed by everything else in vitality. I'm not too interested in extra dexterity, which only gives me armor. Okay. Skills. So keep in mind that I do run this build a little bit differently to other people out there. That's important to note. You'll go, why are you using this skill? Everybody else uses something else. That's fine. This is my version of the build and how I will run. So Crippling Wave Tsunami, this is just like every other zMonk I run. It's pretty helpful. Gives some little freezes as well. And slows them down. Great. Cyclone Strike Implosion. So this is how I'm pulling the mobs in. It's also proccing my shoulders survivability buff. And Implosion is the important rune to use because that's giving you more pull, which is really important in these speeds. Just be pulling from as far away as possible. Okay, Inner Sank Temple of Protection. Now this is honestly in speeds mainly for you. I found that it's not like my DPS can really stand on it much. So I don't particularly need Temple of Protection in this build, but in case my DPS are on it and they don't have IP, it could help them. So I'm still running Temple of Protection, but if I wasn't, I went, nah, it's really only for me, I would then go with Safe Haven because it's extra healing. So that's your other option there. Now, I am personally running Epiphany Soothing Mist. Now, this is what I run on all my zMonk builds. And importantly, from what I know, other people running speed zMonks aren't running this. They're running Dashing Strike. I prefer Epiphany Soothing Mist. This is helping me heal. Every time I'm hitting, every time I'm attacking, so this is where attack speed is important, I'm healing people around me. And I can move with Epiphany. So if I click something with Crippling Wave or Cyclone Strike, I'm moving to it. So I don't feel I need Dashing Strike for movement because I'm using Epiphany for both movement, survivability, healing. It does everything. I just need to click a mob. The only time it can potentially slow you down as opposed to say Dashing Strike is you need to actually be clicking on a mob. So if you're running like right at the end of the level and there's like nothing alive there, you can be slowed down a bit by this, but for the most part when I was running this I found it fine, so I'm quite happy sticking with Epiphany Soothing Mist for my speed zMonk. Breath of Heaven Zephyr. So this is about the, well, it does heal as well, so that's great, extra healing, but really the key thing there is movement speed. So when you're running between mobs, you need to make sure you're still hitting this really regularly to give those buffs to the others in your game, and obviously you also use it when you're standing in a pack, but that's why you want this cooldown so often, so you can keep that movement speed up to keep everybody running through that grift. Okay, Mantra of Conviction Annihilation. So remember, we get the base effect of all 4 mantras through our Inner's 4-piece set, but importantly the active of this, and that's each time you press it, right? Whoops, I hit epiphany, not mantra. Each time you press it, that's a damage bonus. So everyone within 30 yards of me is automatically taking 8% increased damage as a passive bonus, but the active is the damage bonus is increased to 16% for 3 seconds. So ideally, I want to be hitting this particularly when I'm in the packs. Not so important when I'm moving between the elite packs, but definitely when I'm stopped on a pack, around every 3 seconds to keep that damage buff up for our DPS. Okay, passives. Now keep in mind that I do have the cheat death passive on my amulet, so I do have near-death experience as well as these, but resolve, importantly, this is survivability, so everyone I'm hitting does less damage, helps everybody in my team survive. Beacon of Atar, cooldown reduction, really important, and one of the reasons that we can reach that 65% cooldown. Unity, this is a damage buff for my DPS, so it's technically also a damage buff to me, but I don't care, I'm not doing damage, but it's giving 5% increased damage to my DPS in my team. And Exalted Soul, I do find I'm using a lot of Spirit on this build, so right now I'm running Exalted Soul to get more max Spirit and increase my Spirit regeneration, to help me make sure I can be hitting things like my mantra, and my Cyclone Strike and stuff like that. So really, these two are my big spirit spenders on this build. Other things are on cooldown, which is handled by all the cooldown that we have. Okay, so I think that just about covers it. Keeping in mind, this is my personal speed zMonk that I like. Other people run a different version, and that's okay. Feel free to check out their guides for that. Any questions, please throw them in the comments, and I will try and answer them. I am pretty new to this build, having very recently set it up, but yeah, hope this has helped, and thank you very much for watching, and GG.